Installation of a Calisto 2 online DGA monitor. This video provides step-by-step instructions for the installation and commissioning of a Calisto 2 online DGA monitor. The following tools are required for a standard installation: tube cutter for rigid oil lines, 5/8 of an inch and 11/16 of an inch open-end wrenches or an adjustable wrench, wire stripper, small flathead screwdriver, large flathead screwdriver. A Calisto monitor may be mounted either directly on a transformer or on its own mounting post. Here, we will mount a Calisto on a mounting post. We will begin by installing the post. Installation of the Calisto mounting post. Important: the Calisto mounting post must be installed on a smooth, level concrete slab that is at least 152 millimeters or 6 inches thick. The slab's surface area should be at least 356 millimeters square or 14 inches square. The wedge anchors must be more than 70 millimeters or 2.75 inches from the edges of the slab. The Calisto mounting post must be positioned so as to minimize the distance between the valves and the transformer. 2 people are required to complete the installation of a mounting post and Calisto. Place the mounting post's base on the concrete slab and mark the positions of the holes to drill. Remove the base. Then, using an electric or air-powered hammer drill fitted with a 1/2-inch concrete drill bit, drill the 4 holes to a depth of 89 millimeters or 3.5 inches. The holes must be flush with the surface. If necessary, use an air blower to remove dust from the holes. Use a hammer to drive in the 4 wedge anchors from the anchoring kit. Place a 1/2-inch flat washer and a jam nut from the anchoring kit on each anchor and tighten firmly and evenly. The recommended torque is 50 pounds per foot or 68 Newton meters. Place another 1/2-inch flat washer on each anchor, and then position the mounting post on the anchors. Using a 24-inch level, ensure that the post is level in all directions before proceeding to the next step. If necessary, use the extra 1/2-inch flat washers from the kit to level it. Complete the installation of the post by placing a 1/2-inch flat washer, a lock washer, and a jam nut over the base plate on each anchor and tightening evenly. Now that the post is installed, you can secure the Calisto to the post. Securing the Calisto to the mounting post. Firmly attach the top strut channel assembly 76 millimeters or 3 inches from the top of the Calisto mounting post using a U-bolt and strut washers, as well as the lock washers and hex nuts supplied in the assembly kit. Use a level to ensure that the top strut channel is level. Unscrew and remove the 2 hex nuts and the 2 lock washers from the shock mounts. Position the monitor and replace the hardware without tightening. Take the bottom strut channel and insert the two spring nuts. The distance between the two spring nuts must be 279 millimeters or 11 inches. Take two of the shock mounts provided with the Calisto and remove the 3/8 of an inch hex nuts and lock washers. Keep all hardware close at hand. Apply a drop of thread locker on one of the threaded sides of a shock mount and loosely screw the shock mount through the strut washer and the spring nut without tightening. Repeat for the second shock mount. Place the bottom strut assembly on the post so that the threaded rods of the shock mounts insert into the Calisto's bottom mounting holes. Use the parts remaining in the U-bolt kit to secure the bottom strut channel to the post, but do not tighten the U-bolt yet. To adjust and align the Calisto, move the bottom U-bolt up and down, or the shock mounts left and right, to ensure that the shock mounts are aligned with the Calisto's installation holes. Once the Calisto is aligned, move the bottom U-bolt up and down, or the shock mounts left and right. Tighten the two bottom shock mounts and then place the two 3/8 of an inch hex nuts and lock washers on the shock mounts. Tighten the hex nuts on the 4 shock mounts. Retighten all 4 screws on the base plate to complete the installation. Now that the Calisto is secured on the mounting post, you are ready to connect the mains power. Connecting the mains power. Use only 1412 American wire gauge wires. The stripped section of the wire must be 9 millimeters or 3/8 of an inch long. Wire isolation ratings must be at least 300 volts and resistant to at least 90 degrees Celsius or 194 Fahrenheit. For more details, please refer to the installation and operation manual. Strip the power wires. Connect the grounding system inside the Calisto using the green screw and the flanged washer inside the Calisto. The recommended torque is 10 pounds per foot or 1.15 Newton meters. Connect the power to pins 2 and 1 to terminal TB1 located on the main I/O. You are now ready to connect the Calisto's alarm relays. Connecting the alarm relays. The Calisto 2 features 5 programmable dry contact output relays. Each relay can be connected in a normally open or normally closed configuration. For each relay, pin 1 is for the normally closed position, pin 2 is the common pin, and pin 3 is for the normally open position. Pin 16 is not used, and pins 17 and 18 are for grounding. Use only 22/16 American wire gauge wires. The stripped section of the wire must be 9 millimeters or 3/8 of an inch long. Wire isolation ratings must be at least 300 volts and resistant to at least 90 degrees Celsius or 194 Fahrenheit. For more details, please refer to the Installation and Operation Manual. Strip the wires. Completely loosen each screw terminal and insert the wires into the appropriate terminals. Firmly tighten the screw terminal to secure the wires in place. You can now connect the Calisto's 3 analog outputs. Connecting the analog outputs, 420 milliamperes. The Calisto 2 features 3 420 milliampere analog outputs with 1500 volt isolation. One for dissolved hydrogen, one for moisture, and another for carbon monoxide. Pins 1 and 2 are for grounding. Pin 3 is not used. Pins 4 and 5 are for moisture. Pins 6 and 7 are for hydrogen. And pins 8 and 9 are for carbon monoxide. Use only 22/16 American wire gauge wires. The strip section of the wire must be 6 millimeters or 1/4 of an inch long. Wire isolation ratings must be at least 150 volts and resistant to a temperature of at least 90 degrees Celsius or 194 Fahrenheit. Load resistance must range from 0 to 500 ohms. For more details, please refer to the Installation and Operation Manual. Unplug the connector. Strip the wires. Completely loosen each screw terminal and insert the wires in the appropriate terminals. Firmly tighten the screw terminal to secure the wires in place. Replace and tighten the connector. You can now connect the Calisto's single analog input. Connecting the analog input, 420 milliamperes. The Calisto 2 features one 420 milliampere analog input with a supply voltage of plus 24 volts direct current and 1500 volt isolation. Pin 1 is for the shield to earth ground. Pin 2 is not used, and pins 3 and 4 are for the analog signal. Use only 22/16 American wire gauge wires. The stripped section of the wire must be 6 millimeters or 1/4 of an inch long. Wire isolation ratings must be at least 150 volts and resistant to at least 90 degrees Celsius or 194 Fahrenheit. For more details, please refer to the Installation and Operation Manual. Unplug the connector. Strip the wires. Completely loosen each screw terminal and insert the wires into the appropriate terminals. Firmly tighten the screw terminal to secure the wires in place. Replace and tighten the connector. You can now connect the Calisto's RS485 communication port. Connecting the RS485 communication port. The Calisto 2 features one RS485 communication port with 1500 volt isolation. Pin 1 is for the shield to earth ground. Pin 2 is not used. Pin 3 is for the common signal ground. Pin 4 is for line A. and pin 5 is for line B. The RS-485 has the capacity to cover a distance of up to 1,200 meters or 4,000 feet. Use only 2216 American wire gauge wires. The length of the stripped section of the wire must be 6 millimeters or 1/4 of an inch. Wire isolation ratings must be at least 150 volts and resistant to at least 90 degrees Celsius or 194 Fahrenheit. For more details, please refer to the installation and operation manual. Unplug the connector. Strip the wires. Completely loosen each screw terminal and insert the wires in the appropriate terminals. Firmly tighten the screw terminal to secure the wires in place. Replace and tighten the connector. You can now connect the Calisto's RS-232 communication port. Connecting the RS-232 communication port. The Calisto 2 features one RS-232 communication port with 1500 volt isolation. Pin 1 is for the shield to earth ground. Pin 2 is not used. Pin 3 is for the signal ground. Pin 4 is for received data, and Pin 5 is for transmitted data. The maximum recommended range for RS-232 communication is 15 meters, or 50 feet. Use only 2216 American wire gauge wires. The stripped section of the wire must be 6 millimeters, or 1/4 of an inch long. Wire isolation ratings must be at least 150 volts and resistant to at least 90 degrees Celsius or 194 Fahrenheit. For more details, please refer to the installation and operation manual. Unplug the connector. Strip the wires. Completely loosen each screw terminal and insert the wires in the appropriate terminals. Firmly tighten the screw terminal to securely hold the wires in place. Replace and tighten the connector. You are now ready to connect the Calisto's Ethernet communication ports. Connecting the Ethernet communication ports DNP3 and IEC 61850. The Calisto 2 features two Ethernet ports with 1500 volt isolation. Ethernet port J9 is dedicated to MSSP, DNP3, and Modbus protocols, whereas Ethernet port J4 is for the IEC 61850 protocol. Jumper J7 may be used to ground the Ethernet cables. The maximum recommended range for an Ethernet connection is 30 meters or 100 feet. Use only 2216 American wire gauge wires. The stripped section of the wire must be 6 millimeters or 1/4 of an inch long. Wire isolation ratings must be at least 150 volts and resistant to at least 90 degrees Celsius or 194 Fahrenheit. For more details, please refer to the installation and operation manual. Connect the cable to the appropriate port until it locks in place. Connecting the Calisto's USB communication is fast and easy. Connecting the USB communication. The Calisto 2 features one Type B USB port. It is helpful to use the USB port to configure and set up the unit. For more details, please refer to the Installation and Operation Manual. Connect the Type B USB cable to the dedicated port. You can now connect the Calisto's oil lines. Connecting the oil lines. It is recommended to install optional shut-off valves, preferably ball valves, underneath the monitor on the oil supply and return lines. Should it become necessary, these valves will simplify the removal of the monitor. Do not make straight lines between the transformer tank and the monitor or form a loop or a twist in the oil line. In very hot environments, it is recommended not to insulate the oil lines. In very cold environments, it is recommended to permanently insulate the oil lines. For more details, please refer to the Installation and Operation Manual. Preparation of the transformer valves, supply and return. Install the elbow fitting, half-inch national pipe thread, on the transformer supply valve. If necessary, use an adapter. Install the elbow fitting, half-inch national pipe thread, on the transformer return valve. If necessary, use an adapter. Installation of the oil supply line on the Calisto side, then on the transformer side. Insert one end of the oil supply line firmly into the fitting. Using an 11/16 of an inch wrench and a 5/8 of an inch counter torque wrench, secure the tube by tightening the screw by 1 1/4 turns after firmly tightening it manually. Repeat the previous step for the end of the tube that leads to the transformer. Oil supply line. Installation of the oil return line on the Calisto side, then on the transformer. Insert one end of the oil return line firmly into the fitting. Using an 11/16 of an inch wrench and a 5/8 of an inch counter torque wrench, secure the tube by tightening the screw by 1 1/4 turns after firmly tightening it manually. Repeat the previous step for the end of the tube that leads to the transformer. Secure all oil lines against excessive vibration. Once all connections have been made, the oil lines and the monitor must be flushed with oil in order to remove any air present in the system and to replace the oil that was shipped inside the monitor with oil from the transformer. Follow these instructions to flush the oil lines. Flushing the oil lines. Warning: before flushing the oil lines, the following checks should be performed because the unit will be turned on in the next steps. The earth ground is properly connected. The mains power is protected by a circuit breaker. The mains supply switch is in the off position. Both monitor oil inlet and oil outlet valves are closed. Both transformer oil supply and oil return valves are open. Firmly push the supplied Quick Connect oil sampling tube into the monitor's oil sampling port located next to the oil inlet port. Using a container to collect the oil, slowly turn the outlet valve, left-hand side, counterclockwise by 1/4 turn, the handle will then be pointing downward, to completely flush the return line. To avoid injecting air into the transformer, flush with a minimum of 500 cc's of oil. Once a minimum of 500 cc's of oil has been flushed, close the outlet valve by turning it clockwise to a horizontal position. Slowly turn the inlet valve, right-hand side, counterclockwise by 1/4 turn to a vertical position to flush the supply line. Turn the mains supply switch to the on position to start the internal oil circulation pump and begin flushing the supply line. To avoid injecting air into the transformer, wait until at least 500 cc's of oil has been flushed. Once a minimum of 500 cc's of oil has been flushed, return the mains supply switch to the off position. While keeping the inlet valve open, remove the Quick Connect oil sampling tube from the oil sampling port by pushing the locking ring down and pulling the Quick Connect oil sampling tube out. Open the outlet valve, left-hand side. At this stage, the transformer valves and monitor valves must be open. Close the Calisto's door. You are now ready to commission the Calisto. Installation of the Calisto 2 online DGA monitor is now complete. For more information, please contact Morgan Schaffer Technical Support. Morgan Schaffer's technical support can be reached at 1-855-861-1967, option 3, North America, or at 1-514-739-1967, option 3, International, or at support@morganschaffer.com. This video was produced by Morgan Schaffer. Morgan Schaffer. Accuracy is everything.